Wifey, what are we doing?
We're vegan?
Whose idea was this?
It was yours.
What? I'm losing my mind. Somebody, shoot me quick! So, we watched a documentary. The documentary was called Eating Yourself Alive, and I guessed that it was going to be like a documentary about like veganism and eating a plant-based whole food diet. After we watched the documentary, we decided to give it a go. Now, the main reason that I wanted to start with the vegan diet is, well, I knew you would be on board with it because it was a diet that you had done before. And it wasn't like paleo or, Mediterranean or something that you weren't too familiar with, too confident with.
So my family, we all just decided to go vegan for fun because my sister needed to do it for some reason. I think she's like eliminating foods from her diet or something. And we're all like, let's do it together. So we all went vegan. And fun fact, Oreos are vegan.
I'm basically treating this like it's an elimination diet. So start with the vegan, which is the whole food plant-based. And we're doing a pretty restricted version where we can't eat oil. So a lot of vegan people will drizzle like olive oil over salads and stuff like that. We're starting here. I'm going to work back up, add in those essential things. One thing that I did not go off of was eggs. So,
I did.
She did. So I guess technically
I'm vegan. He's something else.
After we watched the documentary, we were like, whoa.
It is very compelling.
Yeah.
You watch it and you're like,
sold!
What am I doing with my life? I'm killing myself from the inside out.
Yeah. So we got one of the cookbooks. This is one of the guys in the documentary. Mr. McDougal. Yeah. He says it's the healthiest diet on the planet, and he's very sure of himself, and then he contradicts himself.
And then he contradicts himself. So his cookbook doesn't really make a lot of sense. I would not recommend this book.
Yeah, I would not really recommend this book either. This book,
one, however, I like this book.
Yeah. This one has a great pancake recipe that saved my life.
And he's been making it like 2 mornings a week, and it is so good.
Well, 3 mornings a week.
It is so good.
So good.
My favorite pancakes ever. The pancakes.
The pancakes.
We gotta tell you about the pancakes.
Yes, we do.
More about the pancakes.
All about them.
The best thing to do is put your favorite nut butter on the pancakes and then a tiny bit of real maple syrup. Ugh. So good. So good.
Now, I am not convinced by a long shot that this actually is the healthiest diet on the planet. And I've been doing some research. This is a book called Boundless. It's an amazing book. It's got a ton of information in here. The guy that does this book, he's not vegan. He does say that if you're vegan, then there are certain nutrients that you'll miss out on. Try to include eggs and dairy as one of his tips on a plant-based diet. I've been including eggs. I feel very proud of myself.
That was my suggestion.
Good job, wifey. High five. 3, 2, that one's done. After I using this book as my jump off place, I listened to a guy that was credited as having a very balanced view of diet. The first book that I read was The Genius Life. It's by Max Lugavere. This book was actually the second book that he wrote. It touches a little bit on diet. It's pretty good. Here's his book on diet. It's called Genius Foods. Basically, he does not advocate for a vegetarian diet, although he does advocate for eating a ton of plants. Basically, he says that the biggest portion on your plate should be plants. He basically is a low carb, higher protein guy. And from my understanding, he basically takes what appears to my untrained eye, a Mediterranean diet and tips it to be heavier in fats, greens, and protein and lower in carbs. I'll give you one example of
McDougal.
where I think that I'm missing out on the vegan diet, on the whole food plant-based low oil diet, right? This guy says all oil is bad for you. The fat you eat is the fat you wear. On the documentary, they say that like extra virgin olive oil is actually not good for you, and that it's basically a myth that's being propagated by the media. and by different companies that it's good for you.
Coconut oil is really bad for you too.
Yeah, coconut oil is really bad for you. This guy has a different take on that story, and he actually cites evidence, unlike the guys in the documentary who basically give you no evidence. They just say that the media is wrong. Anyway, basically he says that they've done studies that found that extra virgin olive oil is an anti-inflammatory that has some of the same benefits as low doses of ibuprofen or another NSAID, but without the negative consequences on your stomach and kidneys that NSAIDs like ibuprofen have. So that's really interesting, especially for me because I deal with some neck pain. If I could not take ibuprofen as often and use something like extra virgin olive oil as kind of like in my diet as an anti-inflammatory, that would be pretty cool. But on the McDougall diet, on the you're eating yourself alive diet, can't do that. So I'm missing out on this natural anti-inflammatory, which is really interesting. The other one that's interesting is they said that like coconut oil is bad for you. There was a doctor whose husband had Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's. I think it was Alzheimer's disease. And there was a experimental food that was high in MCT oil, and they were doing studies that showed that MCT oil helped people with Alzheimer's. So she gave her husband, she couldn't get a hold of this food, but she knew that coconut oil had a large amount. It was like 55 or 50 or 55, maybe 55 or 60% MCT oil. I'd have to double check the exact number, but it's over 50% MCT oil and coconut oil. She started giving her husband a couple of spoonfuls of coconut oil a day, and she started to see results. I think it was after a week or two. She upped the dose, and using coconut oil, she was able to roll back his disease by about 2 years, which was fascinating to me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So basically, labeling all oil as bad seems like a reach to me, that there's definitely some benefits. This guy makes a pretty good case that your brain runs on oil, and that your brain will adapt to carbs, but carbs aren't necessarily the optimal food for your brain.
Yeah, this one
That
says
is one of those things.
low carbohydrate diets increase the risk of death and disease.
This guy basically says, but fat
The opposite.
reverses Alzheimer's. So, and it's experimental study. It's not written into science yet, right? This is like fairly cutting edge stuff. Basically it says, take it with a grain of salt, but we were able to see this thing. It's promising. We got to do more research here to see where it goes. We can't just write the stuff off yet. It's interesting stuff. Basically, this guy makes blanket claims about diet. This guy says diet is an evolving science. Take whatever you read with a grain of salt. He's done his best to provide the latest research that he's been able to find and summarize it for us. A lot of people in the documentary were like, I feel way better. I don't feel fatigued eating this diet. I feel exactly the same.
I mean, but look at you.
How do you feel? Do you think you feel better eating this diet? I'm smacking my thighs, my knees.
Yes, I do.
She does. All right. So I think it was like the second or third day, I went to Bible study and I started eating salami. I'm thinking I might want to try low carb at some point, but I eat 2 sandwiches a day, so that'll be a challenge. Yeah. I'll let you know when I do. That's it for today, folks. Thank you for watching. Bye.